You guys are the worst athletes in the history of football. And you know, Trent, who's he talking to?
Talking to you.
Talking to me, man.
Visa, a network working for everyone. Overcoming the odds, rewriting the playbook, delivering under pressure. The MVPs of small business lead their teams to victory all year long. Visa is proud to provide playmakers everywhere with more tools to help grow their businesses and help them achieve even greater success. Because the more people we can empower, the more we all win. Visa, a network working for everyone. Well, welcome back to Beyond the X's and O's, and today we sit down with Steve Young, and we talk about everything. You got to understand our relationship goes back a long time. We probably could have talked for 4 hours. But some of the highline items here that I think you'll really love is hearing him talk about his first JV start where he throws 6 interceptions. He was called one of the worst athletes in the history of Greenwich High School by the varsity head coach at the time. He gets into this idea of how you got to go through it, not around it. When I talk to him about this culture of quitting these days, talk about his time at BYU. He's number 8 on the depth chart. They move him to defense. Why? Because he didn't know how to throw a football. Here's a Hall of Fame quarterback that talks about how he didn't know how to throw a football in high school. He didn't know how to throw a football when he gets to BYU. It wasn't until he watches Jim McMahon and studies Jim McMahon that he learns how to throw a football. We obviously talk about his NFL days. We talk about his family. This is just a man that has great depth, great stories. We talk about our time together on ESPN and a Super Bowl Sunday pregame show that we disobeyed our bosses, and I think they're still mad at us. And then just talking to him about the state of the NFL. And Steve Young's one of the great thinkers that's out there, and his take on just the state of the NFL, the state of quarterbacking. And then there's a little surprise there at the end. He has a conspiracy theory that you're going to want to check out because I think he might just be right. So let's jump in right now with Steve Young. All right, so I could not be more fired up for this, guys.
I know I was your first choice, right? This is your 15th version. I know that I was first, but somehow I blew it. I'm assuming.
I was wondering how many words I would get in before you interrupted me. when we worked together on ESPN, I used to have a little red marker, and I'd do little dashes on how many words I could get in before you jumped in. So even in my intro to the podcast,
that's sad to hear. My wife would agree. She says, Steve, quit breaking in.
Hall of Fame quarterback, one of my best friends on the planet, and one of the most interesting men in the world, Steve Young. Thanks for being with me today, buddy.
Trent, good to be with you, man. This is awesome. This is a dream. I have an open mic with you, and people are actually paying attention. There might be people that watch this. This is amazing.
That's how I was going to get started. Was 9 years of television together. We used to have to keep our comments to like 45 seconds. We always ran over. There are no time limits today, so we can talk about all this stuff we talked about off camera. The one thing I don't want to do here is make this the football life all over again. By the way, if you haven't watched Steve's football life on NFL Network, it is must-see TV. It is amazing how vulnerable he is. He talks about the book that he's written, and we'll get into some of that. But please go to NFL Network and watch Steve Young's football life. And I don't want to make this a redo of that. I want you to get to talk about all the stuff that didn't make the football life. I know I was with you on the plane coming back from Monday Night Football games when you were writing it. When you and Barbara writing it, I know the intention behind it. I know it was for the kids. There's so much good stuff in your life. Your journey is everything this show is supposed to be. It's about a quarterback's journey and all the stuff that doesn't make Sunday morning shows and Monday night NFL shows. So I want to start with Greenwich high school football, tee you up. Talk to me about your high school experience. You're a 3-sport athlete, how much that meant to your development, your relationship with your father as he watched you compete. And then just your first touchdown pass in high school and what that meant to you.
I wanted to say rap about 14 times in the last one.
Exactly. That was a big intro just for you.
All we ever heard was rap. We had all the producers rap. In fact, one time, Trent, I'll answer your question about high school, but one time we were at the Super Bowl. We were doing a Super Bowl show, and I got so sick of hearing them telling me to rap. I go, Trent, let's just keep talking. Don't stop.
Yep.
I don't care what you talk about. You can talk about hot dogs. You can talk
Yep.
about, just talk about whatever you want to talk about, hamburgers and what you had for lunch. And so we did it, and they kept going, rap. We got to rap. And we've talked about that for years. That was the most fun we ever had on TV. But we have been together a long time. We should not just run over that. We were brothers in arms, and we had, Trent was a guy that, a little younger than me. And so there was like a generation gap as far as just quarterbacks and about the just things that were going on when I was, exactly when I was playing. We overlapped, but there was a lot of the similar people and a lot of the experiences. And I think, I have a unique take on football. I think that's just kind of my unique nature. And Trent got me. Like nobody, very few people get me. Like people are like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. You belabor stuff that doesn't matter. I'm like, no, this is what matters most. And Trent was like the one guy that's like, I get it. So I love you for that, man. We're bonded forever. Okay, back to high school. I grew up in the mean streets of Greenwich, Connecticut.
Rough.
Yeah.
Rough.
And I think that I more than anything, it was that my perception was that we weren't rich or we weren't poor. We were just, we got along. And my perception is that Greenwich was a great place to be because all my friends were, I was the only Mormon kid in town, and all my friends were Italian Catholics or Irish Catholics. And they made clear, I say that because they told me every day, what they were and what it meant. And, all my friends in high school used to say, we can rebuild him. The $6 Million Man was the big show. And they'd always say, we can rebuild him bigger, stronger, faster, Catholic. And we had so much fun. My friends backed me 100%. One of my favorite moments was I was a junior taking over. Greenwich High football was, was the thing in the county. And despite the fact that people have a perception that it was kind of a tennis golf town, right, or a country club town, which it is. But there's a big vein down the middle of the town of football and all about football. And I just remember my junior year, I was starting, and we went to, all of us after the game went to the party that had guys from both teams there, and the guys from Darien kind of circled me up. And they were going to force me to drink because I was Mormon, I don't drink. And so that was like a big thing. It's like, we're going to force, and they kind of fronted me up, and it was going to be a thing. They're going to hold me down. And I just remember my teammates, my Greenwich High teammates coming to my rescue and basically, taking these guys away from, and like, you don't get near our guy, and I think back to what fundamentally happened in my high school career. And that's one of them, the idea that people have your back. And you teach this principle, every day. Now that you're a high school football coach, and the values and the things that you feel are important about football and why football is a great game, most of the time it's not about just who wins and loses. It's really about the character development. And the character development for me in high school was that we were a lot of different kinds of people. A lot of towns are very similar, homogeneic, kind of like very, everyone's kind of the same. My town was like a smorgasbord of people. And the fact that we came together, and I remember we had this old 65 Oldsmobile. By then it was 20 years old. And we heard that Dick Butkus used to get in shape for the Chicago Bears. It was a apocryphal story. I don't know if it's even true, but someone read it. Said he pushed his car around in neutral around the neighborhood. That's how he got in shape. So we thought, well, we're going to do that, right? So we got my old car, and my brother's 2 years younger than me, Mike. We got him behind the wheel, put it in neutral, and started pushing it around the neighborhood. And I guess a lady saw us doing it. You see 2 or 3 guys behind the car trying to push this big old lug around. And that was our workout. That's how we were going to get strong. And I guess a lady in down the street must have seen us doing it and thought it was dangerous because this little kid, like 4 years old, was like behind the wheel trying to guide it. She called the police. The cops pulled up and said, "What are you guys doing? What are you guys?" We heard that Dick Butkus, the Chicago Bears Hall of Famer, he used to do this back in the day, and we thought we'd get in shape. And the cop goes, "That's awesome. Keep going." keep going. And there's a spirit around, what we were doing, how we, my sophomore year, that was the first year of high school, sophomore year. So 10th, 11th, and 12th, 3,000 kids in Greenwich High School. I remember I was playing JV, and the first JV game was Labor Day, and it was a Monday, and the varsity played on Saturday, and the JV played on Monday, and it was a holiday, so everybody had the day off. So everyone came, all the varsity guys, the varsity coach, everything, and I threw 6 interceptions.
Oh.
It was like that. It just rained in the morning. It was super wet, and I still didn't know how to throw a football. I had no idea. I didn't learn, by the way, until I was in college. So I spent all my high school years were fraught with terror, because all I knew was to grab it and try to spin it out of my hand, kind of like you wanted to spiral. So I would just like spin it, and I had no power on it, wouldn't go anywhere. And I threw one, Trent. I went to throw it, and it spun and it flipped out of my hand and went straight up in the air. Straight up in the air. And so we were waiting for it. This big pile of people were waiting for it to come down. And I jumped up trying to bat it down. And of course I batted it, and then I batted back up. And then it was like someone intercepted. It was like 6 times. Six interceptions. You can't throw 6 interceptions. It's impossible.
You didn't throw 6 interceptions in a full season in the NFL.
Oh my gosh. I go in after the game, and I'm like, all the varsity guys that are watching, you can think, sophomore, what am I, 15 years old? And you're like, I'm trying to be an athlete. I'm trying to show my stuff. To this day, well, no, it's not the worst day. It was the 92 championship game. But it was the worst day of my athletic career. Like, I throw up in my mouth a little bit just thinking about it. And we went in, and we're taking our clothes off and, kind of changing in our uniforms off and everything. We're kind of, I remember having my shoulder pads off, and all of a sudden, Mike Ornato, the varsity coach, he'd been around forever. He was a legend. He goes, so let's bring it up. Bring it up, everybody. And he brings it up. He goes, this is the worst display of athleticism I have ever seen. You guys are the worst athletes in the history of football. And Trent, who's he talking to?
Talking to you.
Talking to me, man. And I just thought, your whole life when you're a sophomore is the varsity, is your town. You don't know anything outside of your little village. And I just remember the weight of everything just falling right on my head. And I thought, but I guess the second half of the story, not to belabor it too much, my junior year, now that I was going to come back and try to play varsity, that summer, those of us that were sophomores, the JV guys, used to get together and were pushed, beyond our limits. And everything we were thinking about was what Mike Ornato said, we were the worst athletes. And it carried through all the way to our kind of county championship in my senior year, that we all talked about, we're not going to be the worst that he's ever seen. It was like a theme that we kept going. And, and my dad's Hall of Fame speech at Canton, Ohio, when I went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, his title of his speech was, well, he's a long way from Canton. Well, that was as far away from Canton as I could ever get. Was my sophomore year in high school. Enough of that.
Well, those stories are amazing, Steve. A couple things unpacked there. I do think, because one of the purposes of the show is for young people to listen to it and take something away from it besides just laughing, and the lessons learned. I think number one, I loved what you said about learning that your teammates had your back and that character development in high school. And not that we're condoning fighting at parties, but just that.
No, there wasn't a fight. Yeah. It was more of a look. We, in a way, it was not a fight. It was like, look, he is supported.
Yeah,
he is supported.
That's a huge deal.
And I was the oddball, right? I'm the Mormon kid from no one knows. Half of my friends were like, I don't know what that is, but I know he doesn't drink, so we got to back him. And so I appreciated that.
And then the second thing is just there's so many quarterbacks out there right now that they watch these videos and they see some 5-star kid ripping it around. He looks like an NFL player, but there's some great athletes playing quarterback that haven't figured out how to throw it yet. And you admitted that you didn't know how to throw a football until you got to college, that the development of the position and learning how to hone your craft doesn't end. Just because you don't have it in high school doesn't mean you can't have it in college or later on. So I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that as well. You played 3 sports, right?
I did.
And how much, because there's this conversation around dual sport athletes and how much it contributes to their future success, and how much do you value those other sports and how they better developed you and prepared you when you went to BYU and became obviously an All-American.
You can't play, Trent. You can't play three sports and be a great basketball player.
Nope.
I don't believe. No. Like, I just think going straight from football to basketball,
it's brutal.
It took me a month just to try to get into shape and try to figure that out. But they all fed back to football.
Yeah.
Like, playing baseball and basketball helped football. If you wanted to be a 3-point sports star and play basketball, I would say probably not. Yeah. But for me, they all did feed back to football. Pitching, the different things that basketball did. I was a big fan of playing three sports for football. I think football is the kind of game that there's expertise and there's specific talents that you got to hone, but they can be honed in other sports in many ways.
Yeah.
Where I don't think it's necessarily true for some of the more specific. Basketball has some specific things that you got to work on, and I think they like I said. But for football's one of those catch-all sports where Ziggy Ansah, a great athlete out of Ghana, Africa, can show up on campus in the United States and then be the number 1 draft choice a year later. Because football is a game that really is about athleticism, and developing in your athleticism in other sports is probably okay. And I do worry that so many guys get started very young. I would have benefited. When I say I didn't know how to throw the football, it really was a technique.
Yeah.
I thought you spun it out of your hand. I didn't know. I had to watch Jim McMahon when I got to college, how he threw like the screwball move, right, with the finger down. And that's how you could get power on it. That's how you could, once you got that technique, and then you could put accuracy. I remember thinking when I learned, I'm like, what I could have done in high school. But I think that you can overthink it. I also want to say that there's a lot of parents that have come to me over the years, had me see their son throw the football and say, what do you think? What would you say? And, I had to be honest and say, look, I think he's a receiver, because not everybody, I know everyone wants to play quarterback. Why did I choose quarterback? Because the guy in 7th grade, when we huddled up, he says, only the quarterback talks in the huddle. I'm like,
oh, that makes sense.
That's got to be me.
Yep.
I don't know what he does. I don't know what he's. I don't know what's happening, but I know that that's how I want to do it. And I also believe there's a spirit to it where if you're driven by others to try to go pro or go to get into college or even high school, it needs to be self-driven, or else it'll fail on you. It'll fade. You'll disappoint yourself and others. So be sure that when you're being pushed, that you're along for the that you're emotionally along for the ride as well. So that a lot of 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds get pushed so hard that by their 15 they don't care about the sport anymore, which they would have loved if they hadn't have been pushed in a way that was unnatural to them back when they were 7, 8, 9. So
no doubt. Hey, before we get to our first break, how'd that county championship turn out?
Got beat.
Oh.
The fact that we were there, the fact that the pain and anguish that we went through, it was funny. My brothers all followed me. My brother 2 years later was he broke all the records, and my brother Tom followed him and broke all the records, and I didn't have the records. Remember, I didn't know how to throw the football. So it's funny. You look back in Greenwich High School. You go to Greenwich High School right now, you play on Steve Young Field, and my brothers are like, that's crap, man. That's just crap.
You weren't even very good, and they play on your field.
That is just crap.
Let's go to our first break. When we get back, I want to talk to Steve Young about his recruitment process and his journey to Brigham Young University. We'll be right back. Hi, football fans. Trent Dilfer here to tell you that NFL SundayTicket.tv is like having front row seats to every live out-of-market game every Sunday afternoon, no matter where you live. That's a lot of football. And guess what? This season, you get even more football than ever before. 18 weeks of NFL glory right there in your front room. Stream to your favorite device. Just picture it. You put your feet up, kick back, eat snacks. Oh yeah, and stream an insane amount of football. So make your seat a front row seat and catch every second of your favorite players and your favorite teams every Sunday afternoon. To see if you are eligible, go online to NFLSundayTicket.tv/SundayReady and stream every NFL Sunday Ticket game this season to follow your favorite team no matter where you live. Use promo code DILFER 2021 at checkout to save 15%. Exclusive student discounts also available. My life is nuts, whether I'm coaching high school football on Friday nights, watching college quarterbacks on Saturday, or watching NFL guys rip dimes on Sunday. I am always needing that extra shot of energy, and I live on this triple shot. Starbucks Triple Shot Energy, extra strength coffee beverage in a can. That's Starbucks coffee that you love, ready to drink. 4 core flavors: vanilla, dark roast, cafe mocha, and now available in 2 zero sugar flavors, black and vanilla. So, what gives you energy? Find your Starbucks Triple Shot Energy online or at your local store. All right, Steve, let's put the high school years to bed and talk about, as you're being recruited, what that was like back then 1,000 years ago. Were you a big time recruit? And then what eventually took you to Brigham Young?
So I was a good recruit. I mostly because I ran. I mean, at that time in 1980, I was fast. Yeah. I mean, I was
super fast.
I was 4.4 fast, or maybe even fast. I mean, I can't even believe how fast I was. To really be honest with you. And I could move. I could run. And so everyone ran the split option, or even some people, even Oklahoma's run the wishbone. Yep. And there's only 3 or 4 schools in the whole country that were throwing the ball, and that was Stanford, University of Miami, Florida, and BYU. And BYU had been doing it for a long time with Mark Wilson and Gifford Nielsen, and that was the great equalizer for BYU. And so I was recruited at Virginia. North Carolina wanted me to come in and start. They were running this kind of the split option kind of thing, but I was not recruited like at Penn State and I remember I actually got an appointment to go to Army up at West Point, and I went up there for the recruiting weekend, and we watched them play Pitt, and Pitt's new freshman quarterback was Dan Marino. So I'm in my senior year of high school, and Dan Marino's the quarterback for Pitt as they played Army. And I remember standing on the sidelines of my recruiting trip, and Pitt was coming down towards us, coming down the field. And right in front of me, about 25-yard comeback, Dan Marino throws a laser out right in front of me. The guy catches it for like a big first down. And I remember thinking to myself, holy hell, I don't know what I'm about to try to do, but that is not what I'm doing. And it's just ironic, very interesting that the two of us went into the Pro Football Hall of Fame together. And I just think back to that time at Army, like, one of us does not look like the other. And, again, I blossomed a little bit later, but that was how my recruiting process. I remember going, I went to Virginia, and right at the time they were trying to recruit Ralph Sampson, who was a 7-foot phenom, And I remember landing into Charlottesville, and on top of the buildings, they were like, "Ralph, please come!" Like people had put out signs and everything for the University of Virginia. But I remember when I went to BYU, and I was a freshman, and I was 8th string, and no one knew my name, and it was just terrible. That I called my dad and said, "Dad, I made a mistake. I should have gone to North Carolina. I could be playing right now." And they actually knew my name. They actually cared about me, and so I told him I wanted to quit, and he said, "You can't quit, I don't live with quitters," he told me.
All right, well, let's dig into that. As I knew you were going to get there at some point. Let's dig into this culture of quitting. We just had a quarterback this week, gets benched, and now he wants to leave the school. It happens all over the country when guys don't get their way. They're checking out. So I wanted to quit too. I wanted to quit about 150 times. I tried to quit my JV basketball team, and I went home, and my dad made me go back and apologize to the coach, and said, "I'll be back tomorrow morning to make up the practice that I missed." So you say you can't go around it. You got to go through it, right? So go ahead, give us your Steve Young thoughts on quitting, getting through it, what that looks like.
Well, people always say you can't quit. You don't want to quit, or like wanting to quit is a rite of passage. Yes. Wanting to quit is natural.
Yep.
And that could be because it's too hard, or it's you're somehow embarrassed,
unfair,
or you're insecure, or I mean, there's 1,000 reasons, good reasons, to be thinking about quitting. Like I totally, in fact, if you don't go through that, Michael Jordan talks about that. I guarantee you, Peyton Manning, like nobody's free of having those strong, and that never ends, by the way. You can be a pro, play in your 4th, 5th year, 6th, 10th year, and be in a situation like, oh crap, I want to get out of here, man. This is too much. And so I think that you set yourself up for success. And I always say go through it, not around it. And I really mean it, because as soon as you start a path around things, when you know you got to go right through the middle of it, that path is just a path that and look, you can rationalize, and you can
rally support.
Mitigation.
A lot of people rally support to
support and say, look, you're right.
It.
You're right. You should definitely, my mom would have said, just come home. You're miserable. Let me make you some food. Like at some level, the people even love you the most don't want to see you suffer. They don't want to see that you do hard things. But in the end, and I got to be honest with you, Trent, we've talked about this before. My one desire for my children is that they learn to do hard things. And how can I set them up in a very kind of paved way, things that can show them that they can do hard things? And I don't know if I'm being a good parent if I don't, but who wants to concoct or create hard things for their children when that's painful, when that's difficult? But in the end, life is going to bring them. And I guess that's my one desire for them, is that when they see it, that moment of truth, when it's like, and you can almost feel it. I can go around it or I can go through it, and I'm just going to live through it. And if you start to pave that road, that's a road that you can have confidence in 100 times over in the future. And I remember I played 18 seasons, in professional football, 18 seasons. And you see everything. Trent, you played 13 you played forever too. You think that when you go pro that you've seen it all, and you're just getting warmed up. And so I go back to being 0 for the season as a 13-year-old and 13 and 15-year-old Babe Ruth baseball. 0 for the season. The embarrassment. I had
you had a rough stretch there between like 13 and 16, didn't you?
It was tough. I once I started my junior year, things got better, because I only say this to help myself out here, but I ended up being all-state in 3 sports. So like there is a silver lining in the story, but I got to be honest with the roots, right? I could just told you that could have been the headline. You're like, oh my gosh, Steve Young was amazing. No, Steve Young was not amazing. And Steve Young never believed that he was amazing for a long time. And I really kept that spirit of it. But my dad set the tone when, he was the kind of guy that said, look, you do what you love. I'm not going to force you to do anything. But when you choose to do it, there is 0 chance of you quitting. 0. And so for him, that was the imaginal. That was the line that couldn't be crossed. And so when I was a freshman at BYU, 8th string, it was miserable. I mean, if I could describe it to you, I could go on for 5-10 minutes. You go, oh my gosh, that was miserable. That didn't matter to him. You had made the commitment. You work it out. And the amazing thing about that is that misery was the fall of my freshman year. In April, 2 weeks into spring ball, through an incredible series of events, I'm now backing up Jim McMahon and play within the year. That next end of August, Jim McMahon gets hurt. I'm playing against the University of Colorado in Boulder within 10 months of being the most miserable human alive. So I'm not saying that always works that way, and it rarely does. But you'll never know if you go around it. Yep. And I guess that's the point. You'll never know what really could happen unless you go through it.
Oh, I love that. I've stolen so many good things from you, and you're the one guy I will credit. Most stuff I steal from guys, I just pretend that it's my own. But you, I always credit, and I have used going through it, not around it, more than you can imagine, and you still get credit every time when I use it. I hope parents are listening. I think kids actually intuitively want to go through it. This is what I've learned. I think deep down they want to fight through it, but what they do is they get these voices, and it's usually in the passenger seat when they get picked up, giving them a reason to go around it. And then the kid's going to believe
actually
his
encouragement, right?
Yeah.
Encourage, right? We'll go fix something. We'll go try something else, or we'll go find we'll go somewhere else where you can, and look, there's success stories of people, peeling out and going somewhere else. I get that. But, man, I look at opportunities to go through it at this point as the most important opportunities that I could ever be given. The idea that I would miss that opportunity to kind of grind it out. That's, you asked me on the other side of 30 years of sports, playing sports, that's my truth. Yeah. So.
What was that game like in Boulder? Let's get into that first time.
No, that one, that's where it launched me. Yeah. We beat Colorado, which is a big BYU that, when we played out of the WAC and played in the Big 12 or the Pac-12, I mean, at that time it was the Big 10, the Pac-10, but those are big games. And so Jim got hurt and I went in and ran around. Oh, there's some great highlights of me at University of Colorado. And that's what launched, because as soon as the game was over, they're like, Steve Young is related to Brigham Young? Like, it's great. I never even thought much about it, you know what I mean? But all of a sudden they made that connection, and I'd run around and thrown some balls, and Jim had taught me how to, by then, my sophomore year,
you could rip
I could rip it. And so all of a sudden, this thing's just exploded. Not only could I run, I could throw it. And so I played at University of Colorado, and that was the next Monday. I was in New York City on Good Morning America.
Really?
Yeah, because of the connection of bringing. They thought that was pretty funny.
Wow. All right, so this is something. Take you behind the curtain of Monday Night Football. Steve and I would sit on the Monday Night Football bus, Gruden's bus. Steve, Ray, and I talk, and the common theme was Ray screaming at defenses. Correct. Me egging on Ray to scream at defenses, but then you just rubbing your head saying, oh my gosh, if I got to play in an offense like this. Okay, so now you watch college football, you will watch a ton of pro football. These modern day offenses where there's these quarterback runs, and it's now okay to do it as a play call. All yours was frenetic playmaking, run around, scrambling. I need the audience to understand that. Like, Steve Young ran around because the play broke down. Now quarterbacks run around because the coach calls a play for the quarterback to run around or run downhill, tack the line of scrimmage. How unfair would it have been? I'm not asking you to brag on yourself, because it's you and a few others too, right? Randall Cunningham. There's some other great. How unfair would the game be? Because you were legit sub 4.4. I know the story's true. You beat Jerry Rice in a runoff in practice. So you're one of the fastest quarterbacks that's ever played.
So I appreciate that. I think it's important to recognize that the game, even in the last 3 or 4 years, has significantly changed, and it's brought. Think about it. College football is spring ball and summer camp.
Yep.
And that's the time that coaches and players can get together. It's not a lot of time. Yep. And so the sophistication of college football is not nearly as pro football, because in pro football, there's significantly more time, or at least there used to be. When you and I played, there was a true profession, and you had all that time to build sophistication into, offense and defense, but especially defense, because that was and so in the pro football game today is exactly like college. Spring ball, a couple OTAs, and a summer camp when you don't even play in the preseason. So there's not the time. So coaches cannot be sophisticated anymore. And so with that lack of sophistication, then you build into it a defensive hamstring, right? By being safer. You can't throw your body. You can't patrol the middle of the field. You can't lead with your head. You can't hit the quarterback. You can't, I saw guys make really formed tackles on quarterbacks today, and they get flagged. You're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So the game has changed for safety reasons, and now it's an unfair fight. We've talked about that when we were together. It was becoming more and more of an unfair fight between offense and defense, and even more so today. And so when you think about what you can get away with, you can draft Kyler Murray out of Oklahoma and run Oklahoma's offense.
Yep.
And Phoenix, and for the Arizona Cardinals. You can draft Lamar Jackson and run Louisville's offense in Baltimore. Like, That was zero possibility back in the
Zero.
day. And the fact is, when I watch it today, RG3 when he came out in 2012 and he's in Washington Redskins, I remember we were watching the game like, the transition from college to pro now is much smaller. Still hard. It's still a super fast game. Greatest athletes in the world. That's still not easy. But the transition is like less. So now you stand back 6 yards off the ball, and no one can hit you. The flats are. I'm Tom Brady. I saw him a year or two ago, and he goes, I go, Tom, what's the difference between when you came in the game when you started in 2000? And he said, oh, it's incredible. I mean, no one can patrol the middle of the field. The flats are open every time you ever need anything, and no one can hit me. It's like, this is the greatest game in the history.
I can't play till I'm 50.
No, and so and he probably could, as long as he doesn't get hit and his arm doesn't give out, because you really are protected. And so, yeah, I have a lot of, I don't know if it's jealousy or regret or just so sorry for myself, or none of them really seriously, but I wish that I watched games I watched the other day with Aaron Rodgers and how he thinks about standing in and playing. It's like, I used to say, and this is the best way to say it is, I used to say when I turned college to pro, what's the difference? People say, what's the difference between the college and pros? And I said, well, in college, every receiver's open. And in pro, no one's open. And that's the biggest difference. Now, it's just that everyone's open in college and everyone's open in pros. And now you can run around. And I say to anyone who can't run around now playing quarterback, you are now at a huge disadvantage because there's too many yards to go get with your legs. There's too many touchdowns, too many first downs that are just out there. You just go pick them up like daisies out in the field.
All right, we're going to go to our second break. If you thought that was good, I'm going to tee Steve up when we get back on the state of football in general, not just offense, but I used to love talking to Steve about from his perspective on how the game has changed, ownership, front offices, all that stuff, as well as the state of quarterbacking in the NFL. We'll be right back with Steve Young. It's been a great start to the NFL season, and it's only getting better at DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. DraftKings is putting new customers in the center of the action with a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. Get in on the action now. It's simple. Just pick your lineup, stand under the salary cap, and see how your team stacks up against the competition. Feel the NFL action like never before with a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. And the best part is you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings app now and use code Dilfer. This week, new customers can get a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. Enter code Dilfer to get free shot at millions in total prizes with your first deposit. That's code Dilfer, only at DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. All right, there's a lot of directions we could go with our remaining time with Steve. And again, I said this on the front of the show. Please go watch his football life. Read his book. He's so much depth to this man. His compassion, his caring, his perspective. Like you just need to know more about Steve Young. But when I was with Steve, we'd have these deep conversations just about the state of the game. And remember contextually where he's coming from. He played in the USFL for LA Express. He goes to Tampa. It was arguably the worst franchise in all of football when he's there. And then he gets traded to the greatest franchise in professional sports, the San Francisco 49ers. Great ownership, great coaching. And then he got to become a Hall of Fame football player there, and he can see things from 30,000 feet. I don't know if I know anybody better than Steve at looking at something from 30,000 feet and explaining to the audience where it was and where it is. So I'm going to tee you up, Steve, and you can go any direction you want with this, but just football, the state of it, what you've seen, go.
Yeah. Thank you, Trent. You're a good man. We did have, I miss our conversations, philosophical, spiritual. I miss you. So I think where I would want to go is football historically was command and control. And the coach had a big stick and he just hit everybody over the head. This is metaphorical, hopefully. And then you performed because you had this fear. It was through fear. And the idea of a coach and players, let alone owners in the pro game and players being partners, was just unheard of. And I think that's what I learned in San Francisco with the 49ers and Eddie DeBartolo and Bill Walsh. Both had, and that's why it was such a magical combination with the two of them, because Eddie wanted a relationship with the players. He was an owner that he saw his players as family. He talked about it that way. I remember the first time that I walked in the door when I was traded there, and he gave me a big hug and kissed me on both cheeks with his scratchy beard, and he goes, "Welcome to the family." I'm like, this is crazy.
This is crazy, Tom.
And then Bill Walsh at the time was focused on integration. He would talk about it in the first practice. He says, "I'm going to integrate this team." And of course, we're thinking black and white guys, right? Because that's what integration in our head meant. But he said, integration is way more than that. It's all the little things that keep us apart: our socioeconomic backgrounds, our geography, where we went to school, our religions, our language, all the things that make certain our positions. Quarterbacks want to hang out with quarterbacks because we think we're smarter than everybody. The DBs, like he said, you could play on a football team for 10 years and you could not know players that are on your team because you just never sat down with them. And he says, that's not going to be who we are. If I come in the lunchroom and all the quarterbacks are sitting together, I am going to move you out. In the locker room, in the buses, in the planes, I am going to force you to go sit down with someone that you do not know. And you're going to have a conversation with them, and you're going to get to know them, and we're going to have shared common experiences. I remember this is a pro football coach talking about shared common experiences, because he said, if you have shared common experiences with everybody, you will have developed a relationship and you will develop an element of love for each other. Who says that? What coach says you're going to develop a level of love for each other?
Well, back then, nobody. And
nobody.
Exactly. Back then, nobody.
Nobody.
Yeah.
But that's why I want to give you the roots of where we are today. Where we are today, and I'm going to give Robert Kraft a lot of credit for seeing what the 49ers did for 20 years and saying, I want to do that too. I want to be that kind of an owner. I want to develop those relationships. I give credit for Bill Walsh handing his toolkit to Mike Holmgren and Ray Rhodes and Andy Reid and handing everything. Think about what Bill Walsh did, Trent. He, at the height of his career, at the apex, he took everything that he knew, taped it, videoed it, audio tapes, little tapes of him implementing offenses, speeches that he made, all the playbooks, everything that he had, he wrapped up and gave it to the coaches they left. And you were the beneficiary of it in Seattle with Mike Holmgren. And he said to them on the way out the door, I'll see you in the championship game. He knew that with this toolkit that he was giving them, that they'd have success, but he wanted them to have success. What's his legacy? Look around the league today. The Chargers, the Rams. I mean, Sean McVay, literally from the same, his grandfather was a GM here. Kyle Shanahan with his dad, Mike. Seattle with Pete Carroll was here in San Francisco, and emanates from through Andy Reid and Mike Holmgren all over the league. How many coaches? Matt Nagy,
Mike Shanahan in his 2 Super Bowls.
Right. Sean Payton, I saw him in Tahoe. Yep. He told me how Bill Walsh was the most influential part of his whole career. He has this precious note from Bill Walsh that told him, I think you're going to be a great, great, great coach. These inspirations of what the league is today. The reason why the NFL, to me, is NFL is so great today is because they've developed a relationship, a partnership between owners, coaches, and players. And they've included the players, and they see them as partners. And the teams that do a great job of this are the most successful ones in the league. The teams that still suck at this, that still don't understand it, are the teams that always are at the bottom half of the league. And it's like, I don't care what play you call. I don't care what quarterback you have. I'm like, look, in the end, football is the ultimate people, human, interactive, integrated sport. And when you can integrate it, you can be great. And the teams that are integrated and see each other and have a love for each other, they're hard to beat.
Oh, so good. And I know you got more. Let's segue to quarterbacks. State of quarterbacking. Who, when you were watching it, who are you a fan of? Who do you root for? Who do you see yourself in? I want to get to this too. If you don't get there yourself, left-handed quarterbacks. Why are there so few? So state of quarterbacking, again, nobody wants to hear me talk. Steve Young, go.
The state of quarterbacking is that, if you're a sophisticated thrower of the football, which sophistication comes through training, nobody shows up a sophisticated passer. You can be a sophisticated runner, I showed up that in college. It's all about Lamar Jackson's a sophisticated runner of the football because he's just got this incredible skill. But a sophisticated passer of the football is trained.
Yep.
And the training comes through time and effort and a lot of hours, but it also comes from someone who can be, better than anyone, Trent, that you got to have a system that cares about quarterbacks,
Yes.
doesn't coddle them,
Yes.
but cares about them and recognizes that in football, especially in the pro game, that a quarterback that is supported and focused, and really the whole organization should be spent on making sure that that quarterback gets the training and the support from offensive line, from the training in the locker room, and in the teaching that he gets, so that he can, because if he's thriving, your team has a significant better chance. And now, even proven the last 3 or 4 years, even more so. We always thought it was a quarterback-centric league before. Now it's like exponentially more quarterback-centric. But you've got to be a sophisticated thrower of the football. And I can tell you, when I played, there were 5 places that I thought were great places for quarterbacks. There are now, I'm not going to say 20,
I'd say
but maybe close
16,
to 20.
15 to 18.
So it's tripled.
Yeah.
But it's still not 32.
Yeah.
There are some terrible places because they still have not taken in this whole idea of Bill Walsh and partnership and then focus on the quarterback. There's a lot of defensive-minded people that see the quarterback as they hate the quarterback, right? They're built to kill the quarterback,
minimize
and they don't,
yeah.
and they want to minimize it. Like the quarterback, just another position. Everybody tries to, and they use it as a weapon to go against what really is the most. Again, it's not to coddle the quarterback. It's not to create some kind of outlandish behavior, but to focus and get them trained and be sophisticated. So a long way to talk about sophisticated throwers of football. Tom Brady now being the guy that's now 44, taking advantage of the lack of sophistication in the NFL. Kind of, I'm sure he would never admit this, right? But got to be chuckling every time he takes the field. Like, I can't believe how unfair this is, because I am so sophisticated after 25, 24 years of playing football that like I can take advantage of that. And the sophisticated passers like Drew Brees, who just left the game, Aaron Rodgers, who really understands the game, Russell Wilson, who really intuitively understands the game and recognize Russell's an interesting one because he's the guy that's built for 2021 because he can run, he can move around, but knows my bread is buttered out of the huddle, making sure that I don't end up with the ball in my hands. And so that's the challenge for Kyler Murray and for Lamar Jackson, for Deshaun Watson, for Josh Allen, for Tua, for, I mean, you name it.
Let me name one because I want your take on him. Zach Wilson.
So Zach has more ability. He has the most raw ability other than Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. I have to say the three of them, amazing ability. But off platform, as you talk about, and the ability to throw the football and to do unique things. And so again, Zach Wilson's going to need training. Mm-hmm. And I think that he has the San Francisco 49ers system, Kyle Shanahan's system has been now transported with Coach Saleh and the offensive with Coach LaFleur and everyone else. That he has that system. He's going to be protected by that system. That'll be good. So he's going to get the training, but now he needs the help, right? You need support. Look what Sam Darnold's done in 2 or 3 weeks in Carolina with support and a plan and some people around him and a defense. Yep. Like all of a sudden he's like, wow, Sam Darnold looks really, really good. Well, that's part of you and I's history, right? Is when you get supported, you can really dominate. And then Zach has a personal challenge. While he's got a team that's kind of finding themselves and figuring it out, he now just last week he throws 4 interceptions. The first 3 balls he throws interceptions. It sounds like my JV game. You now need to claw out of that. Yeah. You need to go through that. Yes. And so Zach now has a challenge, and an opportunity to go through it and to come out the other side, clawing away to show us that if they don't win a ton of games, we still want to see that spark that you understand how difficult this is and that you can find a way through it to shine in places, in spots, and that you can still stand in there and play and continue to get better. And you don't make the same mistake over and over and over again. And that's the position he's in right now. I cheer for him and hope for him, but I know what he's going through right now is the ultimate challenge in professional football, having very little experience, now being asked to step up and play excellent football in the NFL now. And I'm excited for the opportunity for him, because it's going to be, he'll look back and go, whew, that was the most incredible, challenging, tough, emotional, spiritually draining, took every inch of myself in every way that I possibly could, but the most rewarding thing that ever happened to me. And that's what he's in the middle of right now.
I hope, I'm with you, and I hope that he gets a football life one day. And I hope he, the one thing about your football life story that jumped out to me, not this story, I knew basically everything. I was on the plane with you when you were writing the dang book. So, but I never had seen those interviews. And back in the day when you would get that camera put in front of you, this is when you still had all your hair and you didn't have wrinkles on your face, and they would ask you these tough questions, you were so vulnerable. And you would answer them honestly about the challenges you were going through. And even back then, you would talk about going through it, not around it. I think Zach Wilson, I think all these young guys, I think it's an incredible draft class. I think last year's was really good. I think the last three have been pretty darn good. If they choose to go through it, not around it, we're going to have, in my opinion, the greatest era
generation
of quarterbacks we'll ever see.
And we have the opportunities that are there.
Let me end on this, because I think you'll light up when I ask this question and finish with this. Your football life has had massive impact. Talk to me about the impact Barb and the kids have had on you, and also touch the Forever Young Foundation in there too, and just how you've been able to leverage all that you've been able to go through to help so many.
That's kind of you. We did leave the lefty thing out there, but just know that there's not enough lefties in the world. There's none in quarterbacks other than two at this point. So something's wrong. I'll leave it to your audience to go find out what's wrong. I can get into a conspiracy theory, but we won't go there. For my family, I finished my career and got married about the same time. Yep. So I really do have a demarcation of, and I wish that I would have gotten married earlier and started my family earlier and had them know me as the quarterback and that part of my life. They've had to learn it obviously vicariously, even my wife a little bit. We were engaged my last season, so she experienced some pretty tough times. Yeah. So she understands a little bit of it. But in many ways, people say, do you miss the game? And I do miss the game. It took every inch of myself to play and play well. But my life is so much more sublime and rewarding. The game gave me a lot. It took a lot, but it gave a lot too. And I don't want to diminish that. But the significance of figuring out how to, simple statements like happy wife, happy life, things that the challenges, the daily kind of focus and the reward, I call it the law of love. And I guess I got to credit Bill Walsh for starting this conversation with me, that now, but the law of love says that, if you seek a transactional relationship, it will, in the end, not give you the reward that you're looking for. But if you seek a non-transactional relationship, that you give yourself for the healing and the wellness and the goodness of the person or someone next to you, without seeking a transaction back. Like, it's not a deal. I'm not trying to I'm not being good to you because I want something back, but just honestly, wholly fulfill, just putting it out there that I seek your wellness and health and well-being, and then seeing the rewards of what comes back. What comes back is exponentially anything that you ever could have wanted in a transaction. Yep. And so it's this beautiful it's true. And my family life has given me the opportunity to practice that. Significantly transactional at first and struggling, and then finding this beautiful vein of what I call the law of love that's been super rewarding. My wife she is a voice for the voiceless. Yeah. If she sees somebody marginalized that doesn't have a voice, she literally every part of her body goes there to give a voice to someone who might not have it. Yeah. It's just a part of who she is. And so that has been a big part of our marriage. as she has seen the marginalized folks, especially in the LGBT community. And it's not just there, but it's a great example of her seeing a part of our community that was marginalized and not to have the voice that she felt like they should have. And so she practices this law of love kind of like naturally, where I actually have to work at it. And I'm just really grateful. I'm grateful you gave me a moment to talk about her, because the book, and I wrote another, this is nuts. I wrote another book. It's not out yet. I'm calling it The Law of Love, and I'm using it, my sports experiences, my business experiences. And my quote in there is, the law of love is undefeated. Yeah. You know, anywhere, everywhere. And in family, that's where it really became true to me and real. And I'm grateful for my kids. I have my oldest boy is a music theater major. Yep. He's in Manhattan, wants to be on Broadway. He's a great actor, a great singer. I don't know where he got it from, but he was never an athlete. He's very athletic, but he never wanted to participate in athletics. My other son is a gamer, kind of recluse. He's got my anxieties, and he's very careful. And so my boys, I had to figure out a way to parent, not myself. It wasn't like it was just, easy to parent yourself, right? 'Cause another kid that just plays sports, plays football, and that's great. It's still not easy, but I'm making light of it. But I had to actually figure out how to parent someone that wasn't like me. And so my family has stretched me as much or more than football ever did. And I'm grateful you said that. And then for the foundation, Barb and I have been Forever Young Foundation for years, just pecking away at trying to find ways to help kids, a lot of in hospitals, music therapy in hospitals, recreational therapy units in hospitals around the country. We peck away at it over time, and it's just a great group of people. We're one of the top 10 charities in Charity Navigator, just because we're super efficient and run by really people of substance and do a great job. But Trent, you've given me way too much credit here. I'm grateful to be able to talk about these great things in my life. But I sit here now, have been retired longer than I played. And I look back at the years now, my two kids in college, and the greatest part of my life started when I retired. And I wouldn't have thought that. I would have thought that the best was behind me. And you gave me a lot out there. You've been an inspiration to me. You've shown me the way in a lot of different. I watch you. I listen to you. When we were close, when we weren't so separated by distance, we were sitting across the table from each other. I wanted people to know this. You're a thoughtful, spiritually minded, deep, fair-minded, good guy that wants to see the world a better place. And I just really appreciate the chance to sit down with you and have it out a little bit, because I miss being with you. I want this to keep going. Yeah. I know we ran out of time, but when we talk, you bring out the best in me, and I appreciate you.
Well, there was no wrap, but you did leave us on a cliffhanger here. Okay. I said that was going to be the end, but you left us on this cliffhanger. And you gotta do this quick, Steve. What's the conspiracy theory on left-handed quarterbacks?
No. Well, in college, my offensive coordinator, Doug Scoville, said, now remember, my freshman year, disaster.
Yeah, you couldn't throw.
Playing JV. I run into my coach, who's the varsity coach. Doug Scoville was famously throwing the ball at Jim McMahon, breaking records. He looks at me and goes, by the way, I don't coach lefties. Well, what? What
do I do now? What do I do now?
They moved me to defense in the winter. Tom Holmoe, who ended up being my teammate at the 49ers and now the athletic director of BYU, he was the defensive captain. But Love Alvarez sent me to the defense, played corner. Coach doesn't coach lefties, so, you got to go. What is that? So I thought, that's unheard of. No one will ever. He ended up getting a head coaching job at San Diego State that January. So 3 weeks I was doing winter workouts with Tom Holmoe, doing the back pedal and all that. I'm like, I wanted to just throw up on my mouth. It's terrible. And then Ted Tollner came in.
Yes.
And was offense coordinator. He saw me throwing because I now learned how to throw. Yep. And he's like, why are you not playing quarterback? And I go, well, because I'm lefty. he almost fell over. He's like, what? Who told you that? And I go, Doug Scoville said he wouldn't coach lefties. He's like, he grabbed his head. He's like, what is this, nuts? He marched right into Lavelle and he goes, You got Steve Young, he's not going to let him play quarterback because he's lefty? And Lavelle's like, well, no, blah, 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 blah. He said, look, I want 2 weeks of spring ball, 2 weeks. Steve Young's going to play quarterback. And if he does not make significant change in the depth chart in 2 weeks, you can move him. And that 2 weeks, by the end of the 2 weeks, I told you, I was backing up Jim McMahon, and then I was playing that next fall. And so that has been a constant. No one else in my whole career thought about lefty. Bill Walsh loved it that I was lefty. Mike Holmgren loved that I was lefty. Mike Shanahan loved that I was lefty. Steve Mirici loved that I was lefty. So I've never thought about it again. But what bugs me is, where are all the lefties?
I don't know.
We know that 10% of humanity is left-handed. There should be quarterbacks in the NFL left-handed. So my conspiracy theory is there's the spirit of Doug Scoville's out there, and coaches don't want to coach lefties because they have to flip everything. It causes some grief. And so I'm worried that somehow lefties are being held down. My conspiracy theory, they're being held down unnaturally. And I want to free the lefties. And I don't know how to do it, but it's in my heart to go out there and try to figure out how we get more lefties in the NFL.
I think we launch some social media accounts, Free the Lefties, coming out of this show, and this just gives
you got to teach me all that. I don't know how to do that.
This gives you one more thing to add to your plate. I'll end here. Right. Steve started with this story. I got to put a bow on it. We're doing the Super Bowl in Phoenix pregame show. It's about a 4-hour show. It's a big deal on TV. ESPN puts all the resources behind it. Steve pats me on the knee. He's like, listen, we're not, I don't care how many times they tell us to rap. We're not rapping. We deserve to talk more. They got us over on this little side table, and we're going to talk more. So we get going. We think we're talking Patriots. It was Miami, because Teddy Bruschi was at the table with us. And we're out there on the beach on that side table, and we're talking Patriots. And we get a rap. Steve keeps going. And the rap, a little stern in our ear. We wear these little earpieces. And then about the third rap, he kicks me a question. So then I have to answer it. So now I'm getting the raps in my ear. And then Steve tees up Teddy Bruschi. Now he's stuck. It's his first year doing TV. We get 6 raps into it. And then our great friend Matthew Garrett, who will listen to this pod, goes, shut thee up now. We're done. We're going to pull the plug on you guys. Even after that, Steve keeps talking about
I had to finish it up. I mean, we can't just be cut short.
I think we were like 2 minutes, 45 seconds over the segment length and completely hijacked the rest of the pregame show at ESPN. So there's the rest of the story. Steve, I truly love you. You have been one of the great influences in my life. I'm a better father. I'm a better husband. Everything I am is better because of my time spent with you. And I appreciate you coming on. And
we're in it together, brother.
Yep.
We're in it together, and I love you too. So let's do this. It's great stuff.
Well, maybe we'll start season 2 with you and tee you up on some other subjects. Love you, Steve Young. Thank you for your time. We'll see you next week on Beyond the X's and O's. Man, I hope you all enjoyed that conversation with Hall of Famer Steve Young as much as I did. So much to chew on there. What an incredible career. What an incredible man. Big thanks to Steve taking his time to spend it with you and me. Also, big thanks to our presenting sponsor, Visa. And we look forward to seeing you next time on Beyond the X's and O's. It's been a great start to the NFL season, and it's only getting better at DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. DraftKings is putting new customers in the center of the action with a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. Get in on the action now. It's simple. Just pick your lineup, stay under the salary cap, and see how your team stacks up against the competition. Feel the NFL action like never before with a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. And the best part is you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings app now and use code Dilfer. This week, new customers can get a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. Enter code Dilfer to get free shot at millions in total prizes with your first deposit. That's code Dilfer, only at DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.